amazing 273 principals who have been just unbelievable. And you know this during this pandemic, and they will see us through this. And I'm privileged to serve over 127,000 children across Manhattan, approximately 24,000 children in District 2, and that is a privilege. I do want to start by welcoming our amazing interim acting superintendent, Marianne Sheppard, who has stepped up in the most amazing way to lead us through this transition. And you can see her principals are all applauding her. So Marianne, I don't know if you just want to say a few words. I think you're muted.
Hi everyone. It's great to see you. Marisol, thank you for this opportunity. Principals, I know you've had a long day. I'm really thrilled to see so many of you here to really hear from our community and community members. I'm excited to hear what you have to share. And you know, this has been quite a ride the last 9 months, and we're all just committed to doing whatever we can to meet the needs of our students. And so I just thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing what you have to share.
Thank you, Marianne. And we have so many principals and our teachers and some members of our BCO, and I really want to introduce them later because this is a listening session, and so to hear from them at the end would be super productive for all of us. But I do want to say thank you. You've been working so hard, and here you are. So it is so much appreciated. I now want to introduce my thought partner and co-facilitator for the evening. He is our Executive Director, Stephen Aragona. Stephen, you want to say a couple of things?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Aragona. I'm the Executive Director at the Manhattan Borough Office. I work alongside the Executive Superintendent. More specifically, my responsibility is to coordinate support to our 8 districts. That support consists of teaching and learning, special education, multilingual learner support, student services, business services, operations and facilities, and academic response and state accountability. Our primary responsibility in terms of how we deliver support is through professional learning. We also work closely with the central office and ensure that districts and schools have the tools, the resources, the communication that they need to stay in compliance. The exciting part of our work is the stuff that we do directly with schools alongside our superintendents and their teams. We collaborate tremendously with our superintendents and their teams to plan professional learning for teachers, for administrators, for paraprofessionals, for families and community members. So we cover it all for the Borough of Manhattan. Anything that involves the operations and instruction of the school and social emotional support of schools comes through our office. And we work in both directions with the districts and schools and closely with the central office. I'm excited to be with you all today for this session, to hear from you and hear from your experiences and use them for how we continue to shape the support that we provide across the borough.
Thank you,
I'm
Stephen.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm from the translation unit. Just wanted to make sure that you guys know that the interpreters just got the new link. So please wait for the interpreters. We have 2 interpreters for Mandarin and 2 for Spanish. So I would appreciate if you wait for them to start the meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the reminder. You let us know.
So my interpreters received a message saying that the maximum people allowed has been reached, so they can't join the meeting.
Okay, so Michelle, I think we've had this happen before. So if I can definitely step out for right now, and as people come in and out, I'm happy to do that. And then we can let somebody, their interpreter in.
We have 4 interpreters, 2 for Spanish and 2 for Chinese, for Mandarin.
Okay.
Marcella, I put the interpretation numbers in the chat, so anyone who needs interpretation should be able to access an interpreter directly, but I can put them in the chat again, and I wrote them in Chinese and in Spanish.
Right, but the interpreters need to be in this meeting so that they can interpret, or otherwise they won't be able to interpret anything. They need to be on this meeting.
Got it. Emily, in that case, I can leave as well. And I'm going to re-enable the waiting room so that we just pull the interpreters. Otherwise, like an unknown person might join.
And we are live streaming on Facebook right now as well, just so that people know.
Can you share that link with the interpreters instead?
We can try that. Is Jonah Campbell an interpreter?
No, the interpreters are Benito. For Spanish, we have Benito and Nicolas. And
Okay.
for Mandarin, we have Ava and She.
Okay, because we've got people in the waiting room right now. Let me see if I can upgrade the plan for this event right now.
We're getting some people Zoom bombing in our chat room, so I think some of them
I
need to be
removed them.
Oh, you
And
have? Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle has curtailed the chat at present.
Great.
Marcella, could you just ask the interpreters to close out of Zoom and then try joining again because they're not appearing in the waiting room?
Okay, they just tried and they got the same message. Should they keep trying because they just tried and
So I think they have to like close out of Zoom and reopen the link in order to be added to the waiting room, but the waiting room is open, so we should be able to pull them in.
okay.
Is there anything that we can proceed with while we are waiting?
They said they exit Zoom completely and try one more time and they got the same message.
Are they able to watch on Facebook?
I'm not sure. We've never done that.
Sheena,
Okay, I see Benito. Can you admit Benito? That's one of the Spanish ones. Let me see if Nicholas can.
And Shino, could you make Benito a co-host?
Yes. I'm not seeing his name. Where is it?
Oh, so if you type in SPAN first, his name should come up because he wrote Spanish.
Okay, got it. Yep. Make a host. Okay. Michelle, if I signed up for large audience right now, will it go into effect right away?
It should change to 300 right away. Yeah.
Okay, actually, it's going to go up to 500, I think. So let me try that and see if we can just resolve this problem right now.
Hi, I'm testing my mic. You guys hear me? Thank you.
There's someone named Sam that is waving. Is that a interpreter? No. Sam, we're not taking questions quite yet. We haven't yet started our program.
Okay, so we already got our 2 Spanish interpreters. The 2 Mandarin are trying, they're getting the same message. I told them to like restart their computer to see if that works.
Marcella, it could be the name they're coming under. Sometimes people are on their child Zoom. So if you let me know what Zoom name they're on, perhaps they're actually in the waiting room and then we can just admit them.
Okay, I'm going to confirm.
What's the name of the other Spanish interpreter?
Nicolas.
Nicolas, okay. I have 2 people with Nicolas.
It's his last name starts with RAD.
Already, okay, got it.
Okay, so we have both Spanish interpreters in the room. Perhaps we could do the announcement for Spanish interpretation first.
That's a good idea.
Excuse me, you want me to make the announcement in Spanish now?
Yes, please.
Buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Para usted escuchar esta conferencia en español, debe marcar el número 347-966-4114 y digitar el número o marcar el código de acceso 469-072-107, signo numeral. Una vez más, si desea escuchar esta conferencia en español, marque el 347-966-4114 con el código de acceso 469-072-107, signo numeral. Si desea permanecer en este espacio virtual, pero desea escucharlo en español, marque el número 347-966-4114 con el código de acceso 469-072-107, signo numeral. Y por favor tenga pendiente poner en silencio sus dispositivos mientras escucha la reunión. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, Marisol, do you want to get started again?
Sure. Are we waiting for
I think
any
Michelle
other
already,
translator?
Michelle put the information in the chat already.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. All right. I do want to start by just reminding us all how much this pandemic has taken from all of us, right? It's not just a health crisis, it's a fiscal crisis. And I think we have all seen inequities been elevated. In my role, I get to see how this pandemic has actually taken the lives of educators and family members. We have all experienced some type of trauma. Our children have experienced, continue to experience trauma. And so, that is informing our work. trauma-informed pedagogy, trauma-informed practices is it's a necessity, and it's a big part of our work as educators. It is to embed the social emotional learning in our daily routines, and we're working on it, right? We're getting better at it. We're innovating. And so when I think about this, I think, and I know that I have not just a professional responsibility, but I have a moral responsibility to think differently and to think innovatively as I move forward. In Manhattan, we lead with values. Compassion, collaboration, innovation, and equity are at the core of our work. And so my goal for tonight is that through this partnership and dialogue, I can better understand from your experience and generate feedback that will help us improve and innovate as a collective team and within our sphere of control, right? Within our sphere of control here in District 2 and here in Manhattan. So tonight is not about DOE policy. Tonight is about us as a community. It is a listening session. It's going to be an interactive conversation about your experience, about your child's experience in remote and blended learning. You've been co-teachers, right? How are you doing? How are you managing? What's been working for you? And what ideas do you have to help us improve? But before we get into that, and you'll hear me throughout the night talk about how we work in Manhattan. We are one team. I am so proud of my team. I am so proud of our superintendents, their district team members, our principals, our Manhattan BCO, and we move as a team. So when I say to you, these are our values, we lead with those values. And the way in which we engage conversations, and I want to share them with you, are our norms. We have norms that promote dialogue, embrace multiple perspectives, and allows for vulnerability. And so I am going to ask you tonight to allow yourself to be a little vulnerable. These norms were generated by Glenn Singleton. And if some of you are actually familiar with his book, Courageous Conversations About Race, about 3 years ago, we engaged in his reading and his practice, and we've been working on it. These norms help us engage in meaningful, difficult, intentional conversations. And I want to share them with you. I will do that with Stephen. And then I definitely want to engage in a little activity with all of you about them. So actually, we don't have the chat. Do we have the chat? We don't.
Pull the chat if you would like.
That would be a beautiful thing, so that William can share our Manhattan norms. And I'm just going to ask that you just read them and you just listen for a second. And I'm having a real tough time. Here we go. Okay. So the first norm is, and Stephen, I'm going to invite you to help me here. The first norm is stay engaged and listen fully. And this is not just staying present physically, but also emotionally. It's really important for me to know that you listen to me. And I know it's really important for you to know that I'm listening to you. And to do that, I have to listen really actively. Stephen?
So the second one is speak your truth without fear of blame or judgment. So with this norm, we want people to be absolutely honest about their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions without worrying about how others might perceive them.
Number 3 is value and leverage our interconnectedness in multiple perspectives, right? We all have different experiences. We all come from different backgrounds. Some of us have similar experiences. Some of us have different experiences. The beauty in having this type of dialogue is that we get to learn from one another. We grow together as one unit.
The fourth one is foster risk-taking. And sometimes in really large public settings like this, it's not easy to talk or speak up or stay engaged. So we're encouraging everyone to push themselves to take risks and be a part of the conversation in the way that they can contribute best.
Experience discomfort, that's a hard one, right? Because who wants to experience discomfort? It's a lot easier to play it safe. But sometimes what I have learned is that at the risk of not wanting to upset someone, I sometimes have not expressed my own feelings or experiences. And so, you know, experiencing discomfort means that we get to discuss issues and share our ideas in a healthy way.
So similar to experiencing discomfort, the sixth one is allow yourself to become vulnerable. And here, the conversations that we have may not always be the smoothest or the lightest, but lean into it and know that this is a place where we want open and honest dialogue. So get comfortable with your discomfort.
The next one is believe in best intentions. And this is a perfect example of what I mean by that. We're all grounded in our children, right? Families, teachers, principals, superintendents, my team. And so, you know, sometimes I have difficult conversations with parents or with principals or with superintendents. I know that they're coming from a place of what's best for children. And so if I continue to remind myself of their best intentions and I truly believe in them, then I find myself having productive conversations.
The last norm, accept and expect non-closure, is issues in education alone are too complex to handle in just one single conversation. And especially under these circumstances, tonight's conversation is just a part of a longer ongoing dialogue and collaboration between this district and the borough. So please know and expect and accept that we are not going to solve all of the problems in education, and particularly in blended learning, and get comfortable with that and understand that this is a process.
So those are our Manhattan norms. And what I would love for you to do is take a minute, think about these norms, and think about one norm that resonates with you the most. And then I will ask anyone in the group who wants to speak his truth, foster some risk-taking, experience some discomfort, to sort of share which norm resonates with you the most and why.
I would ask you to please raise your hand, and one of us who is a co-host will unmute you.
Thank you, Ushma.
I would say the believe in best intentions is one that resonates for me in terms of my children, and the differences that I've seen with video on and off and how different schools are dealing with that. As much as I think that it is really critical that people have their cameras on for the kids to be able to see each other, it can be an equity issue. There was a comment on the Google form of someone saying there's 4 people in a 1-bedroom apartment, so one of her children does their Zoom lessons from the bathroom and is quite bashful about showing that. And so in one of my children's schools, one of their teachers gives bonus points for having a camera on. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair for everyone. So meaningful ways to believe that kids are engaged and or trying to figure out the best means for doing that.
Thank you, Ushma.
Sorry, I see Gail Halaban. I'm going to ask to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and share.
Mute. Hi, I'm actually not commenting specifically on that. A lot of parents in the chat group are texting that they still can't get in the waiting room. There are like 12 parents on this chat and they're not getting in.
I think
I'm working on it. I'm sorry. In the meantime, if you have a Facebook account, it is streaming on Facebook. But I'm gonna.
So how do they find it on Facebook? Can you put that in the chat?
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you, Gail. Okay, so what I would like us to do now is to actually move into our interactive dialogue conversation. And I call it interactive because there'll be a couple of modalities for us to share. And I will ask Stephen to walk us through that.
Okay, everyone. So first we have a shared document that we're going to work from to collect some additional feedback. So that needs to go into the chat first so that you all can get in there. So let's just take a minute. William, if you can please post it into the chat, and then I'll just give us a couple of minutes to get oriented to it.
Yeah, he just did.
Okay, perfect.
So if everyone could click on that link, and I'll see you in the document. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the document.
Okay, I'm just giving it another couple of minutes. I see the number is increasing.
Mhm.
Perhaps Marisol, you can walk people through what the different headings are and how they can use this document.
Yeah, just giving Stephen a little time to do that. I think we're good, Stephen.
Okay, so this is Excel. So I'm going to probably be using the top column to communicate, see the letters in the top column, and the rows on the side, the numbers, just to kind of get us oriented because we're going to be providing some feedback directly into the document. So I might say, okay, everyone, take a look at column B, row 7, just so that we're all clear on that. At the top of the document, you'll see the 4 values that Marisol spoke about at the beginning of our call, and then our norms, which we just visited together. And then the theme of our session today is twofold. On the first part of it is the blended learning and remote learning experience. We're gonna create a discussion around the experience that you have all had and really that students had on remote learning at home and in school. And then the second theme, if you scroll to the right, is going to focus on balancing the work and school experience for the family. And what we have underneath each of those 2 themes is kind of a summary of what we're going to try and unpack together today as we try to collect some focused feedback. So the blended learning, when we refer to blended learning, we're talking about when students are taught on site in school for part of the week and attend school remotely from home on other days of the week. There are typically 2 modes of instruction that are used in school and at home: asynchronous or self-paced learning and synchronous live learning. Self-paced or asynchronous instruction is when students work at their own pace, often individually or with peers. Live or synchronous, that's A shouldn't be there. Down. Live or synchronous instruction is typically teacher directed and when students have an opportunity to interact with the teacher, the content, and the students in real time. If if you move down now to the row 7 and 8, you'll see that we've broken down some questions based on these two parts of instruction. Hold on a second. Sorry, the document's moving slow, probably because there's so many of us in it. But what we did was, many of you had recently submitted a response to a survey that was administered by the CEC that asked for feedback from you on your experience and your child's experience. And what we did was we spent a good amount of time reviewing that feedback and taking it to think about how we might best use this session to get even more specific about the strategies, the practices, the examples that you've had as parents and as teachers and as school administrators with engaging students during this very radical change in the way we were used to doing things. And what we did was we tried to take some samples of some of the responses that we saw coming up most often. So we don't have every single response included in here, but what we tried to do is when we saw responses that were coming up often, we tried to make sure that type of response would be represented in this document. So if what you'll see is underneath the learning experiences in the school and the learning experiences in the home, you'll have some guiding questions that we're going to work with. And then underneath those guiding questions, we have some of the responses we had already received that are representative of the most common experiences we had seen in that survey underneath. What we're going to do together is we're going to spend a little bit of time on each of these questions together. We're first going to ask that folks put in some of their own responses to the question. And then what we would like you to do is just write your first name and then your response to that question. And we'll do that for a couple of minutes. And then Marisol and I are going to ask some folks to share some of the responses out loud with the group. If you want to elaborate on your response, you can also raise your hand and we can, you can point us to your response and elaborate on it for us. But we have about 6 questions total that we're going to kind of go through together, where we're going to first enter our responses in writing, and then we're going to have a brief discussion about those questions as well. So we're going to kind of do this in a stop and go kind of format. Anything you want to add, Marisol, before we move into it?
No, I think we could move into it. I think that we are going to focus on column B, which is colored, which is a color yellow. And the question is, what practices, strategies, examples worked well for your child in school? And what we're asking you is to please base your response on your family's experience, right? And so to Stephen's point, we have a few examples here, but if you can just grab a box, enter your name, hit enter, the box is yours for you to enter your response. Stephen, how much time do we have for the first question?
So we're going to do this. We're going to have about 6 minutes per question, but that's going to include writing and discussion. So what we can do is give about 3 minutes for people to write their response into a box, and then we can do 3 minutes of hearing from a volunteer or two to elaborate on their response. Okay, so we'll go to 7:18 for folks to enter their responses into one of the boxes.
And I just want to remind everyone that we're not entering school names or teacher names, because this is the effort of a collective community, and we want to replicate practices that work. We want to deepen our work, and we want to be as innovative as we can possibly be. I do ask that you please enter your first name in case, Gina, we ask you to expand on your response or to share with the group. Or enter your name if you want to share with the group. Mm-hmm. I just want to remind everyone that I see some of you typing into the other boxes. So I'm just going to ask that we stay together and we type, we only type onto the yellow column, which is column B. How are we doing with time, Stephen? Should we invite people to share out?
Yeah, I see some responses coming in. I see some good responses too about the at-home experience, and I'm tempted to share them, but I want to hold off because for this first question and discussion, we're really looking about, you know, what's working well in school, because what I should also add is that this you know, for our work in you know, in the borough, which is under Marisol's leadership, it's the borough office and the 8 districts. We, like, our locus of control is much closer to influencing practices at the school level. And the more specific we can be about the in-school experience versus the at-home experience helps us collaborate with principals to support teachers. We have less control over policy. So we really want to keep the conversation on practice as opposed to policy. And that's why we're trying to get so granular here about in school versus at home.
Mm-hmm.
So would anyone like to share or elaborate on something that they put into the document?
If somebody wants to share, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Or we could call on someone by name.
And if you don't know how to raise your hand, you can put your name in the chat.
Or to chat to one of us, yes. I think the message from Virginia resonates quite loudly.
So I see the response from Virginia. Virginia, would you be comfortable elaborating on what you wrote?
Virginia, I've asked you to unmute if you wish.
Yes, quite a lot of difficulty in the beginning of the online. The summer program wasn't able to compensate. So now we have summer. She's in high school. My daughter's in high school. And so we have a lot of things. And that is, it's very complicated. The situation is complicated, and it doesn't seem like the rules or the about it, grading or about everything will allow for normal things to catch up to a normal way. And it seems to me like the whole school doesn't have enough, that the system doesn't have enough resources to manage that kind of a problem.
I thank you for your honesty, Virginia, for sharing that. And Tina, as we move on to the next column, and we're thinking about ideas, what you have seen work, right? For you at home, I definitely encourage you to enter that, because those are the strategies, those are the things that we can use at the moment. But when we get to the second part, I definitely welcome you to please share if you have any of those ideas.
And I'd also encourage participants to really illustrate for us what teacher follow-up looks like. We'd be so interested in hearing the ways in which teachers are following up that's working really well, for your child, because, the teachers are the most innovative and creative folks that we have in the borough, and they are finding ways to make miracles out of this situation. And we'd love to hear from you which of their practices that they have identified and developed and are practicing implementing. We would love to know specifically kind of what some of those are.
Okay.
So we have 2 more speakers that want to speak on this section, if that's okay.
Of course.
So the first is
Lupe, you should be able to
Lupe.
unmute yourself now.
And then Janie Hwang.
Go ahead, Lupe. We can hear you. Oops, she unmuted herself again.
Hi.
Go ahead, Lupe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to share. Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
We can.
Yes, we
and Lupe,
can.
can you let us know
No
if you're
problem.
a parent or an educator or?
Oh, whose turn? I apologize.
Yes, it's your turn, Lupe. Would you just
Okay.
identify yourself as a parent or an educator?
All right, thank you. You know, I still had the Facebook Live going on in my ear. I think I was getting confused. I apologize.
Yes, it's your turn, Lupe.
Let me turn it off. Sorry, guys. It was a bit of a trouble getting logged on today. You know, I did reach out to my son's teachers and his para early on with some of our concerns with what I knew would work with him, especially when we were going temporarily
I'm unmuting.
100% remote. And I will say it did, I got that meeting finally today. However, with only 2 days left of this fully remote was a bit disappointing. But I was impressed with the accommodations that were made. I mean, it took a long time to get that meeting. But one of the things that we found was that my son does a lot better in smaller groups. He's a second grader. He's on the spectrum. He has 100% one-to-one para when at school inside the classroom. And remotely, he wasn't getting any time with her at all due to staffing issues. His teachers also teach both cohorts. So their check-ins with him are 10 minutes long once before school starts for the other cohort that's in person that day. And then about 15 minutes during a lunch period. And he's not seeing both teachers at that time. He gets one teacher, which is, I guess, according to the DOE, okay. However, I will be honest, those remote days, we don't get much done. And since we've been fully 100% remote, it took 2 weeks for them to really hear me out and realize that his para is imperative in being able to kind of be in the Zoom session and see him. Like maybe I suggested her keeping him on her screen because I know that the teachers can't 20 kids, it's hard to look at that grid view and notice that my son is deteriorating throughout a 15-minute session. I mean, we can come in really excited and rote and like hello and greeting. And then all of a sudden, because it's not his turn or he's not being seen with his thumb up, he plateaus and just crashes. And I mean, I told the para, this is a time where you could maybe bring him out in a breakout room if you start to see him, you know, hitting himself or getting upset. And the teachers, we haven't had the meeting with the para yet, but that's the plan. And I hope that this is going to make a big difference. The other thing we realize is that he just can't do really well in the large setting. So he does great in the small groups. Even 4 to 6 can be overwhelming for him just because he doesn't get the cues that he has in a classroom that really help him throughout the day. So again, his para is going to be there to be able to say, I see him, he needs, and kind of make signals, their own secret signals. And they usually cut the chat for the kids, but they're going to allow my son to have his chat open to either his para or even the special education teacher, as opposed to just locking it for him, because he's realized he can ask for help. That was something he did today for the first time, which was like pretty impressive.
Thank you, Lupe. We appreciate that. We need to move on. There's so many people that want to speak. Thank you so much. Thank you. Janie Hwang, I have just asked you to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm a parent. I have who are in 5th grade and they're twins, and they're very excited to be in the same class because typically they're separated, but given the environment, they're in the same cohort and they are in the same class. What has worked really well is small group lessons, particularly with ELA. So when they're in school, they do small group ELA lessons where they talk about a book, they talk about an article, and then there's usually a writing assignment. And what works well is the connectivity with the blended remote days, because basically they're doing the work in school on in Google Docs, and when they bring it home, it's more or less continuous. And I think that connection has worked really well. The other thing that's worked really well is the assignments, I think, are broken down in a little bit more bite size. So I think when they're in class, there's a lot more concept that's being delivered, a lot more theory, a lot more big picture stuff. But when there's the asynchronous stuff is a little bit more structured, which allows the kids to be a little bit more independent as to what they need to fill in. The other thing is the teachers have been really good about answering questions via chat. Sometimes simple things are not clear, or whether questions are stated in a way that are a little bit confusing. My kids have asked the teacher directly and they get a response, and they're good to go. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen, did you want to go to somebody else, or should we go on to the next box?
Yeah, in the interest of time, it would be helpful for us if we moved on to the at-home experience. So what I will say is, if you have ideas, if you take a look at column C, and we'll increase the size of the font in column C. If you have ideas that might improve your child's in-school experience, you can write them in if you haven't already. But in the meantime, we're going to actually move now to column D and the learning experience at home. And if your response to our in-school question was more of an at-home question, please copy and paste it over into this row so we can identify it and call on you. So we're going to do the same thing. About 3 minutes for folks to locate a free box, and then write in a response. And please write your first name or some sort of identifier so we can call on you. And we will, in 3 minutes, then we'll have a brief discussion about the at-home experience.
Stephen, could we maybe unlock column E? And so whether families want to share the practices that have worked well, or they want to share ideas that they populate either or both in 3 minutes.
Absolutely. So we can expand the font size in E, and
in the meantime, Tunisia Riley put a comment into that column and had been chatting with me in the chat. So Tunisia, I have unmuted you if you want to speak while other people are also populating those columns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Rosales. I know you don't remember me. We used to work together at Wingate.
Oh my God, I just had my Wingate mug right here with me. I'm not kidding you. Where are you?
I don't know.
Oh, here you are. Yes. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. I was just talking about how I like when they're in, because they can kind of continue the work that they're doing online. My sons, both of their schools are pretty good about bringing that continuity from school and home and answering questions. We like the fact that it seems like when they're at home, it feels like there isn't a lot of a break, right? Because they're in classes all day. Their schools have made it so they're in class all day, and then they have homework, which kind of continues from that. So it feels like they're kind of online all day. But when they're in the school, there are breaks and there's more interaction with each other in the classroom, as well as being able to actually go and be in the other classes with the other teachers. And, I think we're appreciative of that. And I think that's something the kids miss. I think, all the kids are kind of getting sick of being online all day. And it's really, really nice that they can go in, be together. The teachers are getting to do what they love, which is teaching in person. And I appreciate that. And I wish that every kid could get that experience. And I don't think that happens in every school in every district. But I think District 2, I feel like the schools have really pushed for that to be the reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Marisol, Stephen, is there another comment that you saw come in that you would like to call on someone, or is there someone who has commented that would like to speak?
I was actually sending a private message to Miss Riley there, so forgive me. It's been a while.
Okay, I see 2 participants have raised their hand. Sueanne Schulman.
Hi, how is everybody? Sorry about getting in earlier. I can't seem to type in the document, so I apologize that I'm trying to do it on my phone and it's not working. I have a middle schooler, 7th grader, and he really misses the in-person, but what works at home is when they have a live lesson and then sort of small breakouts where the teacher then hops into the individual rooms, I guess, and like chit chats with the kids at a time. And he's really competitive. So he loves when the teachers do like the Kahoot or the time to climb or, the math, they do it in a game. And I think it really gets the energy level up for some of the kids. And when they could be like partners or have like, especially when they have like 2 cohorts in a bigger Zoom, they have like one versus the other, like all that stuff, the teachers I think are doing really well. I mean, did you guys hear that? I can't.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sueanne. There's one other person with their hand up, Isabella Feliciano. Okay, just click on it once. There you go.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is actually Lilibeth Feliciano. Isabella's my daughter. I can't figure out how to rename it. Sorry. But I have twin girls in 4th grade at PS 51 Elias Howe. Love my school, love my teachers. Pandemic has hit my family hard. I've spoken to actually several of you, and it hasn't gone any better, I'm afraid to say. But in terms of being all at home, I have very 2 diverse children. So I have one child that is great and everything comes natural. And then I have another child that struggles a little bit. So, and one has an IEP and one doesn't. What has worked for us was, one, towards the beginning of remote learning, there wasn't a schedule posted for the kids to actually see and go to on a daily basis. That was one. It was important too that I told the teachers that the schedule be the same every day, that there needed to be routine, and that routine needed to be built and instilled over time, just like in school. They know what recess is, they know when math is. That needed not to be shifting from day to day, from week to week. So we implemented that. That worked very well. The teachers actually do, at least in 4th grade, they do a significant live instruction. We have 8:45 morning meeting. Then we take a 20-minute break. We have 9:45 writing workshop till about 10:15. Then they break into small groups. They have either a small math group or a small writing group. That's when one of my daughters does her IEP. Then they have a homeroom at 11. Then after homeroom, they take a small break. Then there's also small groups in between that. Then they have their cluster schedule. Then after their cluster schedule, they have small math group with their teacher every day at 1:30. And then in between that schedule, if anybody needs any additional help, they also do supplemental smaller groups for social studies and other things. So the smaller instruction has helped significantly. And I find the smaller groups and the smaller live instruction groups has helped more so than last year. The other thing that's helped shift is we used to do a lot of live instruction, which I thought was great, but I was finding that my kids had so much work to do after school was over, and we were still doing work till 7 o'clock because they were doing the live instruction, but then they had homework from that to do. So now what the teachers have done is they use the live instruction time to do the actual assignments with them while they're doing it. And they say, pull up your Google Doc, let's type it in together. Are you working? Let's take 10 minutes, quiet time, do your reading, type in. And so that's helped significantly for the kids. The only thing that I'm finding, among many things, finding very difficult is the child that has IEP, which similar to what the parent said before, the cues aren't there like they would be in the classroom. So it's very, very hard for those sessions to be as impactful and for you to get the cues that you would as a teacher to really fully understand how to help that child, especially if you have a parent that isn't able to either be present and be involved or has a language barrier or just doesn't understand the material. I'm thankful I can be present, but even that, I feel like I'm not helping my daughter and she's struggling.
Thank you, Lilibeth. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Isabella, thank you so much for, speaking your truth. And I think that is actually a good segue into the next part of the conversation, which is balancing work and school. Because Isabella, that was a perfect example of what you and many of our families have experienced, right? You've been co-teachers. And so some parents have had the ability to work from home and structure their day to support and manage your children's work. And then, we've also have parents who struggle a great deal maintaining a balance between their children's work and your professional career. So I think if we move on to the last part, which is the balancing work and school, and maybe William, you can open up the columns F and G, and to think about the supports that worked well for you and your family, and then what ideas you have that could improve supports for family, right? And this is really important for us, for me, for Stephen, for Marianne, for our principals and the call, for us to really think about what supports and how to mobilize resources that would be more helpful for you. Okay, so if we can just take maybe 3 minutes, and I invite you to enter your response in columns F and G.
Marisol, while people are doing that, there was one thing that Lilibeth said that resonated, that is something that Eric Goldberg, who's also on the CECD2, and I have talked about for our high school children, which is the amount of synchronous versus asynchronous learning. Yep. So my high school child is in a 3-day or a 6-day, 2 days on, 4 days off, and it's the same 30 people. A third of them are in school on 2 days, and then for the other 4 days, they're learning the exact same lesson from the same teacher. So it's synchronous learning. That has worked extremely well for him. And I've heard a lot of frustration from other parents about not being able to have that kind of consistency. Food for thought. And I know how complicated this is for the principals and the teachers to figure out, but this is something that I've seen resonating a lot in the Google document.
Yeah, Ushma, I wrote the exact same thing in the document myself, but I believe this is a UFT issue. Unfortunately, I would like to see more of that too, because my middle school experiences with my children have been different, and they would benefit from live streaming of live instruction, where you're putting the remote and the blended all together. But
I think we all agree with you. I'm sure our principals, Stephen, Marianne, we all agree with you that absolutely that is the most beneficial way to teach children, for sure. In the meantime, we will continue to do our best.
We all very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
For all the teachers and principals that are on here, we know how hard your
Exactly.
job is, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting comment from Nicole. where she was discussing Every Voice Choir. She's the director of that. Maybe she could share what they're doing. I guess they've had a lot of success with online teaching through singing. That would be, love to share.
I know
Experience.
that was a comment from the Google form. Nicole Job, was that you? I'm going to unmute you. And if that was you, please share your comment. I don't think so.
I'd love to make a comment too. I'm seeing a couple of people in the chat talking about technology. And one of the things that I know I'm running into, and I'm finding a lot of middle school parents also running into, certainly middle school parents, their middle schools are much more independent, or so it would seem. And I feel like there's this way in which we expect sort of seventh graders or even sixth graders to sort of be on their own. But I recently was having a conversation with somebody who's actually a therapist, who was saying that these brains are not actually formed to have the impulse control necessarily to stop yourself from going on video games, from web surfing, TikTok, things like that. And I have a number of parents who are trying so hard to get their own work done and then expect their seventh grader to stay in class and not sort of click away when the clicking is literally 2 seconds from their fingertips. They can be on something that is, the new season of Fortnite or things like that. And just the struggles with, instead of reading an Elie Wiesel speech on, how to, be in the world and as versus a Fortnite thing, it's really, really tough. And I just know a lot of preteens and early teens are really having a hard time staying in school and sort of finding the entrance into school. So I'm very curious to see how people have combated some of that and find some kind of inner motivation. This therapist gave me the solution of like, it might be back to stickers charts and small incentives of, you get to buy a bag of chips at lunch if you keep your, keep your camera on at Zoom. I know these things are very small, but sometimes they work.
Do you know that I want to thank everybody for sharing your experience with us. We take them to heart, your lived experiences, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we learn from it, to improve our practices, right, and our supports to our schools, for our schools and principals. And we have some of our amazing principals right here in the room. We have district team members, we have some of our BCO team members, and I would just love to give them the floor to sort of share some of their takeaways from this conversation that has been an honest, candid, thoughtful conversation about how we can create thoughtful opportunities for our children and our families. And so I would welcome any of our educators in the room to share some takeaways.
Please feel free to raise your hands, principals. Otherwise, I know some of your names and I might just start calling on you or unmuting you. Rennie Fong is chatting me, so I know he's here. Rennie, would you like to speak? I'm going to ask to unmute you, and if you would like to speak, Rennie, we would love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. It's just very thankful hearing from the parents and from Marisol, just facilitating this conversation. And how hard it is for our students. Most of all, we're proud of them and their resilience. And it's no ideal to be learning from home. And as everyone said, for them to stay focused. But even in school, it's the same thing. But at least you have someone there, on top of them. So just thanking the parents for your partnership and continue to work with us as we learn together. But I think our children are going to be the strongest of any generation because they're going through this. Their resilience is just what keeps us going. So, all that we can do, we just have to keep the communication going about what works best. And it's different for each child. Like some said, some can stay focused on the screen for a long time and some cannot. Everyone has different needs. And so finding how we can best help each child is the most important. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Rennie. Sorry to call you out like that.
Thank you, Rennie.
Zainab says she's willing to speak. So
Awesome.
Zainab, we would love to hear from you.
Hi, good evening, folks. It's so great to hear so many voices. And I think there's a real demonstration of diversity in your voices too. Each of your children have their own needs. And it's so useful to be able to see it and hear it and think through it. I'm looking forward to sharing this with my staff too, because this is exactly what we like to hear. We did a family survey as well, and the detail, I like how Stephen asked for the detail as well. I hear a lot about feedback, interaction with teachers, and interaction with peers. And it sounds a lot to me like those three things need to be prioritized by us schools. But I do want to study what you've written a little bit more before I conclude those three things, right? But thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. So I've got Kelly Shannon and then Maggie Sienna. So Kelly, I'm going to unmute you now.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And it is, just as my colleagues have said, to be able to listen to the various experiences in the open and honest way in which you've shared both what has worked well, what you have had to implement that can actually support us in thinking more deeply about what we use in our building, has been really, really helpful.
Oh, Kelly, we can't hear you anymore. Maybe you hit something?
Ushma, why don't we go to Maggie and then we can come back
Can
to
you hear me?
Kelly.
Yeah, we can hear. Oh, she was back.
There we go. Try one more time, Kelly. Oh, she looks frozen.
Yeah, I think she got frozen.
Okay, Maggie, go for it.
Hey, everybody. It's sorry for the gloomy lighting. My internet is unstable and I'm as close to the source as I can be. I want to thank our District 2 community for collaborating with us on reinventing education. I think one of the things I'm hearing loud and clear just is how hard it is for people, and a lot of reinforcement about ideas that I've been hearing within my own school community about practices that focus on interaction, that focus on connection and interaction. So just my message for my corner of the district, that please know that we're really trying to increase those practices as much as possible. We're finding it really hard, but we know that that's where the highest value is. So we're appreciative of your co-teaching with us. And we especially appreciate the individual outreach with questions and concerns, because we can learn the most, I think, when we can connect really individually about your specific needs.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just, to echo all of the points we're hearing, to understand the way in which connecting with one another, with our students, with our families, that personalized touch, whether it's through email, picking up the phone does wonders also, just to have that conversation where sometimes you don't want to be on Zoom. That is feedback we have heard, and our teachers are really listening to. And I think in terms of small group work, the biggest takeaway I'm hearing is what are the ways we really fine tune and are more strategic about the type of supports we offer. And so it's great to have whole group. And there are times we're building community and doing some of our whole group lessons. That's really important. But sometimes less minutes, if they're targeted and they're smaller groups, have a bigger benefit for students than a 40-minute period of everyone together where they're not getting as much interaction. I think the other thing that we've been talking a lot about, and I've seen some comments in the document, is around making sure we're utilizing tools of how to use breakout rooms and opportunities to help our students also talk to one another when they're not in the classroom together and have that experience, because learning is such a socialized experience. And so how do we continue to create those opportunities? And thank you to our district, our leadership with Marisol and our district team and Marianne and Jennifer and everyone who's been supporting us, and to our families. You really have been your child's co-teacher with us. And so we appreciate the flexibility, but also just the way in which you've supported us to really work through some of the challenges that exist. And we continue to put ourselves every single day in the space of how can we get better and better at the work that we're doing. And so having this feedback, I can't wait to be able to share the document with our school faculty and say, here's feedback that parents are sharing about their individual experiences across the district. And that will be really helpful for our continued planning. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any other principals who would like to speak? Otherwise, I passive-aggressive Marianne Sheppard to say something. Anyone else? Please raise your hand or send us a chat. Otherwise,
I see Rocco Marcy was raising his hand.
Oh, let me find Rocco.
I think I'm good. Hi, everybody. Thanks for organizing this meeting. I think it's incredibly important for the community to try and come together as much as possible during this time. I think for me, in listening to everybody tonight, that's been one of the big things that I've tried to kind of still maintain at 104 or figure out, or how are the ways that we can replicate those opportunities for bringing kids together and infusing some sense of joy and positivity. This is an extremely, extremely challenging last 9 months. And I can only imagine, as a middle school principal, sixth graders who have just started at 104 and have yet to step foot in the building and have yet to meet their teachers or their classmates in person, right? And so I reflect a lot on those things. I think the other thing is that it's important for us as leaders to think about how we can best take care of the teachers so that they can take care of the kids, right? That's one of the more difficult transitions I had to make as I moved up in the world in education. And I still try to remain as connected to the students as possible, but I know that it is the person that is in front of them on a daily basis that is going to make the biggest impact. And so the other thing that we need to try and do is provide help teachers see these things in action, right? And so we spend a lot of time, working with staff developers and going through cycles of learning to try and unpack ways that we can really foster these connections more and work through the issues around cameras not being on as much as we might like. I know that I see a lot of parents shaking their heads. But even if you look in this meeting, right, like we still see lots of cameras off, right? So if it's hard for us as the adults to do it, and I had my camera off for a little bit, so I'm owning that too, that you know, we have to put ourselves in the mind of a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old, you know, and think about ways that we can be creative in increasing their comfort around that, right? And so I'm really appreciative of the feedback. And the only other thing I wanted to share is how appreciative I am of the leaders in District 2, from the very top all the way through to my principal colleagues who, I cannot tell you how many conversations we have had since March about how to get this right, how to do this better. What are you doing that's working at your school? Oh, how did you schedule your building? Oh, I didn't know I could try it that way. I never feel like I don't have somebody to reach out to in the district. And I feel that goes a long way throughout District 2. Because I think that at the end of the day, there is a lot of conversation going on. And while we're all doing things a little bit differently in our school communities, for sure, because each school community is unique, I think there are definitely principles that we all hold on to, and values that we all share, and that we all try to keep those things consistent within our school community. And figure out how we can execute that, so that at the end of the day, I truly feel like in this district, the principals feel like they're all our babies, regardless of whether they're in our school or not. And we just want to help each other do that really well for your children. So we appreciate your support. And you have been thrust into a position that you didn't expect you were going to have to do 9 months ago, on top of doing the most important job, which is being a parent. Now you're doing probably the next most important job, which is being a teacher. So we really appreciate all your efforts, and we're just going to keep working really hard to make sure that we do this the best we can. And I am just very much looking forward to being able to see everybody in person, not through a Zoom screen. Really,
Thank
really.
you, Rocco.
Thank you, guys.
I think I've seen so many principals smiling all at once.
You know, what Rocco speaks to is what we've been seeing in some of the data, the preliminary data that we had from the past few days. We're seeing that there are some school-specific problems and suggestions, and there's some district-wide suggestions. There are common themes that you can apply to the district, and that are separate from the schools. And the idea that principals are speaking to each other, I think you can expand that where teachers are no longer siloed in a remote education in the school. They, you know, 3rd grade teachers should be talking across the district to each other. You could see this expansion where they're sharing topics, discussions that work, and then apply that. I think with remote learning, if you use Flipgrid, teachers have things positioned in terms of topics. You see the same thing in Google Classrooms, and then you can apply that. And I just think that the fact that you're collaborating on a whole different level now allows for answers. It allows for new ideas. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the data is, and what's more granular and what's more district-wide. And
Marisol, Marianne, do you want to say anything else? Ben, Emily, and I all said we would stay as long as parents wanted to talk. So had said that it was only an hour and a half long meeting. So.
Yeah, I have to go. I could definitely make a commitment to do this again. Ben, thank you for validating the work of our principals. They haven't stopped working since March 16th. That is the truth. They have not stopped working since March 16th, 7 days a week, for sure. And that they continue to lead with dignity and respect and compassion and creativity blows my mind every single day. And how they lead their communities is just, I am so humble to be a member of this community for the very same reason. I do want to say something, and then I'll pass it on to Marianne. No, I'm just going to pass it on to Marianne.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Marianne.
Sorry about that. One of the really special things about District 2 is really the commitment to ongoing learning. And, Rocco's referenced the importance of how we set up structures where principals and school leaders can share best practices and even share promising practices that might not be fully vetted. And that work has always been grounded in classroom visits. And so I think what's exciting is that a big part of our work this year is thinking about how do we lift that structure of visiting classrooms to develop a shared understanding of strong teaching practices and bring it into this virtual environment. And so, the principals and the assistant principals have been conducting these virtual classroom visits. And I think, Ben, you bring up a great point. With this virtual environment comes some degree of flexibility that perhaps we didn't have in the past. I mean, this year, we're able to convene monthly conferences with our principals and our assistant principals all together, which typically we would not be able to do because of just the sheer numbers, and we don't have the space capacity to come together in a physical space. But I think a lot of these classroom visits with all of our school leaders together, as well as our weekly office hours that we have with them, is helping to strive towards coherence in the work, especially in this new environment. And, I'm grateful for this opportunity tonight. As we reflect on what's working, what's not working, yes, we look at quantitative data to look for evidence of student learning, but we also know that the qualitative data, the data that we're gathering here tonight, is just as important. So we have a real holistic understanding of the student experience and your experience. And I mean that for both our students and families that are in full remote, as well as the ones who are in the blended learning experience. So people are working hard. I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for everyone to be here tonight, to have the commitment to provide this feedback. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity with the district team, as well as with our school leaders, to mine this data further and really think about how this should inform the next steps that we continue to take as a learning community. So thank you all. Thank you, Marisol.
Thank you, Marianne.
Oh,
Stephen,
thank you, CC members.
Stephen, a final takeaway from the BCO?
I think my biggest takeaway was actually, hearing the principals at the end on how they plan to use the data to plan with their teachers. That was, that actually made me reflect on my facilitation, because I wish I had that in the front of my mind more to ask even more pointed questions for them. So even in that last section, for example, we know that teachers are doing such creative and innovative things to give students space to just make sense of all of this craziness in the world. They're using storytelling. They are finding ways to use reflective writing. They are doing they're using a whole bunch of strategies that are really working for kids who, do not fully understand everything that's going on. And while the document is still open, because it's going to become such a rich resource for us to plan from, I would also just encourage you, if you didn't get a chance to write into it, to please give us as much of that detail as you possibly can, because it's so useful. And I felt like hearing from the principals really reinforced that for me.
Thank you, Stephen.
Stephen and Marisol, is it possible that we can have this document forwarded to the schools to try to get more feedback and get some school specific feedback too, so we can aggregate this? Because learning, as Marianne said earlier, this qualitative feedback, we can have tremendous improvements, and
I think so. I mean, that you're speaking about the power of the collective, right? When we come together, when we are grounded on our learning experiences for children to be successful in a holistic sort of way, and that we're making sure that we're taking care of all of our children with their strengths and their specific needs, then the possibilities are immense, right? And so for me, I am so grateful for the space today, for the level of honesty, the fact that we got to experience some discomfort. I am really humbled by that. I think that we can do the opportunities. We can do so much with it, and we will. I mean, look at these leaders leading your schools and your children, true educators, super reflective. And I just want to say a big thank you to the entire community in District 2 tonight, our families. I thank you so much. I would love to come back anytime to engage in this type of dialogue. So with that said, I want to say thank you to CEC members. You've been unbelievable partners, way to advocate on behalf of our families in a true sort of way. So thank you for that. And with that said, I just want to say good night until the next time.
Thanks so much, Marisol, and we really appreciate seeing you all here tonight. We know that there are a lot of meetings and a lot of different places that you can be pulled to, but we really appreciate you all coming out this evening. We will be posting the video on our CECD2 website. And so you can definitely look for it there. I think we will also leave both the Google form. I think that might be an easier way to continue filling out because we will be populating the bigger spreadsheet, just because we don't want any of the information that's already in the spreadsheet to get typed over in any way if it gets into a larger group. But we will keep these avenues open for speaking. And then I would also encourage all of you to both sign up, any of you to sign up for the CECD2.net. That is our website, and there's a way to join our mailing list if in case you stumbled upon this meeting not through our mailing list. We don't send out too many emails. And then the other thing that I would say is there are smaller committee meetings that happen. I know there is a Students with Disabilities Committee meeting that I lead once a month, and there are other committee meetings that happen that are smaller forums that a lot of our members who are here tonight lead, and they actually take the information that are there and are passing it on also to people higher up in the system so that they can get that feedback out. So I encourage you to join those mailing lists. And come and see us both at our monthly meetings, but also at our smaller committee meetings, in case that's a better forum for you to have your voice be heard. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate you staying with us through technical difficulties, which of course all of our children are even more masterful at doing right now than we are. But thanks for joining us tonight. And we will definitely see you in our homes and in our classrooms, certainly coming soon. Thanks so much.
Emily, we have a CECD2 calendar meeting coming up too.
Oh, yes, that I should have announced that. We have a CECD2 calendar meeting that is another open forum that actually is a town hall with the Chancellor. And we'll be collecting this data in order to present to his office. And that meeting is next Tuesday, December 8th. At 6:00 p.m. Sorry, 6:30 p.m. And that also can be found on our website, cecd2.net. And that will be also a Zoom meeting that you can join. You can enter questions in advance if you like. We'll be collecting those, and then we'll be leading a discussion through the CECD2 members. So yes, that again is December 8th at 6:30 p.m. Next Tuesday. It's the Chancellor Town Hall for District 2. So thank you.
The technical difficulty will not happen because it will be professionally managed. So rest assured, we will not be doing what we had to do tonight. And I'm so sorry.
I know that was a mea culpa on my part. I was supposed to be the host and I logged in unknowingly enough times that it thought that I was breaking in, and it logged us out permanently it blocked us for an hour. So I will take the full mea culpa on that. I apologize, but I'm glad that many of you were able to find us, and we're just keeping the doors open for dialogue. We'll keep that Google form open.
And yeah, you can always reach out to us through our website. So thank you all so much tonight for joining us. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, principals. And thank you, families, for District 2. We really appreciate it.